Good evening. My name is Debbie Yelle, and I teach math intervention, and special education. Welcome to Parent Night. I'd like to take the next few minutes and explain to you a little bit of my background, as well as talk to you about seventh grade math and what your son or daughter is going to experience while they're in class or remote, but under my direction of math. Um, so this is my 25th year of teaching. I've taught in 3 states, both Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. I am a Minnesota girl. I was spent most of my youth in International Falls, where my brother and sister are still teachers. I went to the University of Minnesota, and I got my degree in teaching. Went to 2 years right out of college and taught in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, then went back to Minnesota, taught in some suburbs there, and then got a master's degree from the University of Minnesota. And I also have a K-12 endorsement in special education and a K-12 administrative license. I'm married. I have 4 children. Martan is attending the University of Wisconsin Superior. My daughter Madeline is attending Niagara University. That's my husband Jim. Margot just graduated from Geneva, and she is going to the University of Whitewater. And then Macklin is my youngest, though he doesn't look anything like that because he didn't get a hair over while we were kind of in hibernation in our family, and so we call his hair like the lettuce. It just goes everywhere. But he is a sophomore in Geneva, and he is on the AB schedule, similar to your children here. I'm getting my slides moving here. So in seventh grade, the curriculum is around the mathematical practice standards. It's the idea of kind of mastery over time. And so every unit kind of builds on each other. And so we talk about scale copies in unit 1, and then we'll still be talking about scale copies when we get to May, but at a much deeper level and then with a lot more extension to it. This curriculum also kind of talks about this idea of this like productive struggle, that it's not just about spitting out an answer on a calculator. While as your calculator may give you an answer, it's what does that mean in context of the problem? So if your calculator said 5, is it $5? Is it a 5 increase? Is it a 5% decrease? If it's a decrease, what does that mean? Well, then it got colder if we're talking about temperature. If it was 5 degrees warmer, okay, so and let's say the problem was about boiling water. Is the water boiling or is it not boiling? So it's really understanding what does this number mean in the context of the problem. Also with a kind of this new movement in math, it's not about doing like this rote learning, though we need to be fluid with math, right? We need to have some number sense, but it's this idea that a student doesn't need to have like math like maybe what you and I had, which was a worksheet that had problems on the front and back, and you just kind of did it over and over again. But again, there is some repetitiveness to this, but the idea is that the problems are smaller and they require more thinking. And then with our curriculum, there also are summaries. And so the expectation is that you are reading in math and that you are annotating. And your children were exposed to open up curriculum last year. So it's, I think I'm going to get less groans that I got last year when it was the first time we were showing the curriculum. Here are our topics. There is actually 9 topics. I think 8 are listed here. 9 is just pulling it all together, so I didn't put it on there. But we're going to start with unit 1, which is called scale drawing. So this idea of like kind of almost like architecturally what happens when you make something bigger or smaller and you want all components to stay together. Well, then that's a scale drawing. So going to a copy machine and wanting something to be 10% bigger, all sides need to be bigger or it gets distorted. Then we're going to go into introducing proportional relationships. So one example with that would be is like 2 numbers that don't look alike, but yet they have a relationship. So if you took a recipe and you doubled all parts of the recipe, the recipe is going to turn out the exact same, but yet the numbers that got you there are different. So that's the idea of like proportional relationships. And then when you have a proportional relationship, it makes a certain graph. So if eventually I can show the students a graph and I could say, is this proportional? And they're going to say, yes, it is. and this is why, makes a straight line, or no, it is not because it's curved. And so again, kind of this understanding of what happens with these numbers. Then we go into circles, and then we go into proportional relationships with percentages, rational numbers, which is our typical arithmetic unit, and then into equations. We get into some geometry as we head into spring, and then kind of probability and sampling. And sampling really goes along really nicely with our science units. Going into the resources, open up resource, you're familiar with that, or your son or daughter is familiar with that from last year. Those are those workbooks they had. Mr. Morgan is a gentleman. I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but it kind of flows. So Mr. Morgan is a gentleman. He's a math kind of expert in another district, and he made videos that go through all of the lessons of Open Up, and he made them public to all schools. So you often will find that I will give an assignment and then I will post the video for students to watch, to either rewatch or watch and take notes. And we all just refer to him as Mr. Morgan. I don't know if they'll ever see his face, but they hear his voice. The other thing we have this year is Desmos, and Desmos is not only a workbook that I gave your son and daughter, and it also is an interactive software. And yesterday, as well as tomorrow, depending if you're an A or B student, we're actually going into the software. I can go into their accounts. They can see their, they can be in the problems. I can show my screen and they can see everybody's work. And so we're going to be in Desmos this year. It'll be really nice if we end up going full remote, because then the curriculum really aligns and it's very hands-on, though it's technology. We also have the Khan Academy, similar to what we've had in the past, available to kids. On our in-person days, it's kind of typical. What I'm going to do is kind of some kind of bell work or kind of kickoff for the class. It's either reviewing something, talking about number sense, or kind of thinking and wondering. I show them something and I ask them to think about it or wonder about it. This kind of idea that math could be something you could ponder. It doesn't have to be a set number. It's something we could think about. I'm also going to have an opportunity, especially since kids are gone one day, the day before. So when they come back, I might bring up some things that I noticed that they did while they were away, or we might have a check-in, like, did they have any questions from the assignment that I gave? We're going to introduce new ideas, and then we're going to get into that kind of interactive with either Desmos or interactive. Like, I made boxes for all the students of supply, so they have their own manipulatives. They're not touching other people's manipulatives, but we need to make math hands-on, and in a smaller class size, it's easier to do that because there's less students, and so you can give kids more manipulatives. So you might already ask your son or daughter. They already had whiteboards. They already were up at the board. They were already, they were given spaces, and they were already kind of doing some problems. On remote days, it's kind of an individual pace. I'm going to ask that they check Google Classroom, and they won't need to check their email as they move forward, at least for my class. They're just going to go to the Google Classroom, and then I'll have a variety of assignments there across, all of our remote days. Could be a video that they have to watch, could be a Desmos activity, could be iReady software. And I don't know if I accidentally skipped over that. I did, I apologize. So iReady software is a program that your son or daughter was exposed to last year. And it's got two nice features with it. One is we can assign grade level stuff for them to do. And then the other thing is, if we find an area that they're weaker at, or they kind of have some gaps in their learning, we can assign them some lessons to do to kind of strengthen that. As well as if we find an area that they are excelling on, they can kind of move forward. So again, that's the iReady. And then I apologize. So talking about remote days. So on remote days, there's videos, Desmos, iReady. And then we have Quizlet and quizzes, which they're familiar, from any subject area. But there's a lot of games or activities or lessons that are out there in both Quizlet and quizzes that I might assign to students, as well as problems out of their workbook. Kind of just lastly, before I leave you tonight, I just want to make sure that you understand kind of these concepts about me, is that I'm very passionate about learning and the opportunity for your child to continue to learn and grow in math. You're going to find that I am very demanding, and your son or daughter is going to know that, but I'm also very patient. I'm kind. I have this desire to want kids to like me because I do know if they like me, they will accept more the demanding and kind of the hounding that I'm going to do of them. Of making sure that they are studied, that they are preparing, that I have high expectations. We're kind of taking that threshold and we're going to expand it. So, working on harder problems longer, not giving up. So, kind of that idea, that productive struggle, and kind of that growth mindset. So, I hope you found this presentation useful. If there's anything else I can do, please go ahead and send me an email, and I would love to talk to you more about seventh grade math. Have a good evening.